Guys, welcome back this week. Braden here with Spring Fever. This week it's going to be kind of a fun episode. We're going to compare the three most common calls that we sell, and that is going to be the slate call, glass call, and a copper call. We're going to compare those. We're going to look at the yelp, we're going to look at the purr, we're going to look at cluck, and then at the end we're also going to compare them how they do underwater. So let's get started. I think this will be pretty cool. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I have pulled off 3 pots here off the shelf, and I'm going to do all of these in our plastic gripper pot. That way that there is no differences in them at all. These pots are plastic. They're extremely consistent. So I'm going to do all 3 in plastic, and you can see here that we've got the slate, we've got the glass, and we've got the copper. I'm going to start out with the old-fashioned slate. It's been around forever. Let's get this going. So, same striker on all of them. Let's listen to the yelp on a slate call. Okay, and that's just very low pressure, very smooth, very easy to run. The call's very forgiving. Let's do some purring. Cutting. Okay. Now, the thing about that slate is, it's so easy to run. It's very smooth. I would call the volume of this slate, medium to high. Let's throw another category in here. Let's try soft calling. Let's see how low we can get this. Okay, so, calling soft on it is relatively easy, very, very light pressure. Overall, very simple call to use, and like I said, it's got that medium to high volume on it. Next, let's pull this glass out, okay? We will give this a try. Let's start out with our yelps. Purring. Cutting. Now, I don't know how it's, the sound is comparing to the slate. In here, I've got a microphone set up, and, it's recording this, and the mic's real close. But here in person, this glass call does have a higher pitch than that slate. And if I can do them I'll do that at the end. I'll just come back and run them all real quick. It's just got that higher front end. Now, in terms of playing, the pressure is about the same in terms of how much pressure I'm putting on the call. Pretty light. The only difference is this is a lot smoother surface, and the top is a little bit slicker, and it takes a little bit more attention. I'm really trying to focus to make sure that I'm hitting those notes right. Where the slate, I don't really have to pay attention to it too much. I could run that in my sleep, and not have to worry about the striker sliding on me or something like that and creating a tone that I don't want. It's just a little bit slicker. It's just a little bit, I would think, a little bit more advanced than what a slate is in terms of calling skill. The purr, the same thing. I had to really kind of focus on that, trying to make sure that the angle of my striker was right and my pressure was right in order to achieve those purrs. They sound great. When we're talking about ease of use, the slate was a little bit easier to run. In terms of sound, I think glass produces one of the most realistic hen vocalizations, just because it does have that high front end, and it has that capability of becoming really raspy. The cuts were very easy to do. They're very clear, and that's one thing that I like about glass is the calling on a glass call is very sharp. it's very clear, like a real live hen. The Slate, depending on what Slate call you have, that Slate call can get, I'm going to use the term mushy, or watered down. It doesn't. Some of them just don't provide that clear yelp, that clear cutting. So that's one thing I do like about the glass. Now let's throw that down, and we're going to go with copper. Okay. Now here we go. Start out with yelping. Okay. There's the yelp. Let's go to purring. Cutting. Okay. And like I said, I'm sure that mic is, I'm hoping the mic doesn't cut out and you guys can tell that. This thing is, this copper call it's extremely loud, and it has so much volume. And not only the volume, I think frequency is probably the proper term that I'm trying to look for. It produces a frequency that when I'm doing that initial, the front part of that yelp, and when I'm cutting on this call, like it does something, it hurts my ears. Like it does something, there's just a frequency there that just creates a ringing in your ear that these other two calls don't produce when you're running those. And I truly do believe that cuts and it travels farther. And I think that's one thing, sometimes, when I go through all of my calls, and I carry several. Dad carries more calls than Cabela's. Okay, so when we're hunting, I mean, it's unbelievable. For some reason, I really think that this produces gobbles when other calls don't, and I think it's because it just has that ping to it. It has that frequency that almost makes you deaf when you're up close. I mean, it is extremely loud. It just has something extra there. Now, in terms of the skill, in terms of running it, it is about the same skill level as that glass call. This copper is soft, and when you condition it, you're going to condition it with some sort of Scotch-Brite or something soft, steel wool, a fine steel wool, something like that. Will clean this up. And it's soft, but at the same time, it does have that slicker, has that slicker surface. Slate has a grain to it. And where they mill that, where it's actually surfaced, it has a grain, and it's just naturally got a texture to it, a rougher texture, I should say. This copper call is pretty slick. Now ours have been sanded up, and I've got this one conditioned with a piece of Scotch-Brite, and it plays about the same as that glass call. You got to pay a little bit of attention to it. And it might even come in a little bit easier than the glass, because it runs pretty smooth. In terms of the purring, same as the glass. Okay, I mean it's exactly the same in terms of trying to make sure that I'm holding this thing in the right direction and I'm getting that purr that I want. Cutting, this cuts actually a little bit easier than the glass call. It cut very easily, and it's sharp as well. It's got that clear, sharp cut to it as the glass call. Let's try to get soft. Let's try to get soft on this copper call. We know that this produces volume. Let's see about getting low. Okay, you can get soft on it as well. I don't think it's quite as low as what the Slate produced. It was that was really easy to do. Hardly any pressure on that. Very small circles can create those very low tones. The clucks on it kind of spike and get a touch loud. And again, even just doing that small one, like it makes my ears pop. It just produces something there that's not produced by these other calls. Now, I didn't get soft on the glass, so I'm going to come back to this. Okay, definitely lower tone. Especially on those little clucks and stuff. It's not cutting my ears out. It's not making my ears pop like that copper does. The copper just does. I mean, it's crazy. And honestly, I can't even explain it. I really don't even know what to say. All right, let's do this one more time in terms of yelps. I'm just going to go through all of them so you can hear the tones just real quick through all three. Slate, glass, copper. So that gives you that kind of, you can hear the tone between all three: slate, glass, copper. I get this question a lot, which one would I prefer? We hands down sell the most of copper, and I think they all three have their place. I mean, if I'm hunting, if I get in close to a bird on the roost, I'm not gonna pull this copper call out and just blow him off the limb with the loud volume of this thing. That just wouldn't be too intelligent, and I don't think that's realistic and lifelike of a turkey. So if I'm up close, I'm not to a roost bird or something like that, this copper call is not going to be my go-to. I'm going to go to something like that slate, or even this glass. This glass was very low. I could play that very softly and get some tones and pitches there that I wanted. So they each have their place. Now, if I'm out west, or if I'm in, Tennessee or wherever, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and I'm trying to, run mountainous, big hilly terrain out west where the wind blows 30 miles an hour every day, just normal, I'm going to use, this copper call to get that frequency to travel, okay? And I think this will travel so far that turkeys will gobble and respond to it, and we as humans can't even hear it, but yet they'll come that distance. Same thing for the glass. Glass produces a higher pitch frequency. You could hear it in the calling. I hope you can with this microphone setup. It just produces that frequency that I'm going to use when I'm trying to, strike a bird midday, cut wind, or again, if I'm in that hilly terrain, mountainous terrain, and I'm needing to, get over that hill and produce a frequency that bird can hear at a long distance. So all of these, really have their place for that matter. Now let's look and see what they do underwater. Let me grab our carbon striker here. Now here's the deal. We've done a video on this, and we have said this for many years, that a lot of people get caught in a marketing game on people trying to sell you a call, and they say, oh, this is waterproof. Everything about water is in that striker. You have to have a striker that cuts the water and gets to the surface of the call to create the friction. Most wood strikers are just going to hydroplane. I have not found a wood striker that doesn't hydroplane. So this is our go-to, this is our carbon. We are actually going to saturate these things, and we'll see what it does underwater. I've got my little spray bottle here. This first one is Slate. There she goes, okay? Now I'm going to drench that thing. The thing is actually soaked. It's dripping. Let's see what this slate call does underwater here. Okay, yelps fines. Purrs great. Cuts. Okay, that's slate, soaking wet. Produces fine. Like, it doesn't miss a beat. Sounds exactly the same as it did when it was dry. So right there is one test. Throw that one there off to the side. It's all wet. Let's go back to our glass call. Let's throw some water on this thing. The ease of use on that Slate call was extremely easy. Let's see what this glass does wet. It is wet. You can see now that my scratches are even gone. Let's see what we do here. A little bit of a slide there. Still purring. Now, it's working, okay? It's playing. Does not sound as good as what it did dry. This surface is extremely slick right now. Like, I cannot hardly feel that conditioning spot there at all. Now, again, this thing is soaked. I mean, it's got water dripping off of it. This is an extreme wet spot. I don't think you would ever be operating a call this wet. But that is the glass call. A little bit harder there, and it did not have this quite as good of a sound to it as it did before. Copper, water. Okay, so here it is. You can see it's all beaded up there on top of that. On top of that, let's see what this thing does. Purring. Just like the Slate, doesn't actually miss a beat. You can see the water running there with some carbon residue going on. Doesn't miss a beat. In terms of easy use, I think it actually played a little bit easier wet with this striker. This carbon is sharp. It's cutting through that water, and it's really digging into that copper top, making it easier to play. So when we look at, if you want to compare all three, the Slate produces, realistic sounds, wet, dry, easy to play, easy to yelp, super easy to purr on. It was the easiest surface to purr on. Cutting was fairly easy and produced some realistic tones. The glass call performed extremely well when it was dry, a little bit higher pitch, probably a little bit more realistic to a true hen. Purred, cut easily, just had to pay a little bit more attention, just a slight harder to use than the Slate. The copper call performed the same as the glass dry, except for it does produce a higher volume and a frequency that's not matched by either one of them. That's dry. Wet, it compares to the Slate, and as I said, it didn't miss a beat. Wet, dry, it yelped extremely easy, purred fine, and cut no different. So when we look at those three calls, I guess we can compare them in price too. That glass call online on our website is $20. The Slate call online is $20. The copper's a little bit more expensive. It's $25. So those three calls, they're all three in the black gripper pot, and they're within $5 from each other. So if I had my pick of the litter, it's still probably going to be that copper call in most conditions. And I always pack a Slate as well, but I also pack a glass. So I don't know. I'm a hard one there to decide. But in the all the way around, that glass call just didn't perform as well wet. But again, it was soaking wet, and it still made sounds. It could still be used. Don't get me wrong. But the copper and the Slate were easier to use. So hopefully you guys got something from this week's episode. Hopefully this helps you out when you guys are looking at the website and trying to pick out what pot call would fit your needs best. And remember, put your next longbeard on speed dial with the Spring Fever custom call, and we'll see you guys back here next week. See you guys later.